Hi, welcome to Studio 708. In this video, we are going to create a princess sleeveless dress, which this means it'll have a princess seam line running down it. We're also going to talk about how to make the armhole smaller for a sleeveless dress so that it doesn't gape on you. Let's get started. First, we're going to be using our front top sloper. We are going to be using our front top sloper. So this will have our bust point on it, or our apex. You'll have your front neckline. Make sure you have your underarm line, your waistline, and then this is our hip line. If you don't have this pattern yet, you need to go back and watch the previous video and create the front sloper pattern. So let's start with a grain line, or our center front, center back line here. So we're going to make this a little bit longer than our sloper because obviously this just goes to the hip. We want to be able to make a dress. In this example, I'm going to be making a mini dress or something that'd be relatively short. You can make it whatever length that you would like for your garment to be. I will do the rest of this in marker so that you can see it a little bit better. So I'm just going to line up our pattern with the grain line and go ahead and trace it. Okay, I'm going to mark where my waistline is and where the underarm line is, and I'm also going to mark my bust point. So I'm going to go ahead and square out from the underarm line. And mark that. Square out from the waistline. And mark that. And then you have your hip line already drawn. So like we said, this is your waist, this is your hip line. So we can't make a dress that ends here because that wouldn't be long enough. So we're going to go ahead and add about 8 to 10 inches to the length of this. It'll make it about mid-thigh-ish. You can adjust however much length you want to add to yours here. I'm going to go ahead and square out from the 8-inch mark. And draw a line there. From that, you should be able to square up to your original hip line. Okay, so now we've got basically a dress length. If we went ahead and cut this out and made it right now, it'd still be like our sloper, which would be really small up here at the neckline. It would be a sleeve for, an armhole for a sleeve, and then just basically a mini dress. So let's go ahead and change this into the sleeveless dress. So the first thing we need here is to find our halfway point between these two locations. So just measure. I'm coming out at 6 3/4, so that'll put me at 3 3/8 for my halfway mark. So I'm going to come up here, put my ruler at 3 3/8, line it up so I can square out, and go ahead and draw a cross right there. Okay. So our next step will be to make the armhole smaller. So we need to bring this location up and in so that it's a little bit tighter and so that it's a little bit higher than what it would be for a sleeve. So I'm going to make another guide mark here, 1/4 of an inch above where we are right now. And then from this point right here, we want to go in 1/4 of an inch. So I'm just going to mark that new location. So this will be my new underarm point right here. So this will be my new underarm line. That location right there, we will blend into our armhole. So let's go ahead and work on redrawing our armhole. So since we're doing the tank, we're going to bring our neckline in. And I'm going to come in 2 inches. Come out 2 inches, I guess I should say. So 2 inches from here. And then I want my strap, or what would be the, basically it's a strap, on my armhole. I want that to be about 2 inches wide. So this would be my finished strap measurement. So we'll keep that there, and let's go ahead and drop our front neckline down about 5 inches from where it is now. Remember, this point would basically be where your collarbones are, the base of your neck would be. So we want to come down from that about 5 inches. Once again, this can be open to your interpretation and where you want it to be. Remember, this is your bust point, so this is bust level here. So, I mean, it can be whatever you want it to be, just keep that in mind. So I'm going to go ahead and square out from this lowered neckline, just a guideline. And then if we come up here and square down from our shoulder, we have that guideline. So, and then while I'm here, I'm also going to square out from this, just that little 1/4 of an inch, so that we have a guide mark there. So now I'm going to take my French curve, because I want to round out this neckline so that I have a good scoop neckline. And I'm going to turn my French curve way around to get this curve, because I don't want to be going up or down at that point, and I want it to blend in here. So I'm just drawing that right there, and that'll be my new neckline. So now for our armhole, we need to try to match our new point right here to our squared up line at the shoulder. So I don't want to drop below this point, and I want to try to blend in with that point. So looks like it may be a little high. There we go. So to blend in right here. So now for this point, we need to connect it down to where it blends into our side seam here. Okay, so we got a lot of lines going on here. So I'm going to mark out the one I don't need so I don't get confused. Okay, so our new armhole and our new side seam. So next, let's work on our back armhole, or excuse me, our back neckline. And I'm just going to use our guideline that we already have here. I think that's deep enough that it's still kind of cute and summery, but not too deep. You can once again choose whatever line you want it to be. And I'm going to blend that in just like we did on our front. So if it helps you to keep from being confused, just write front beside here and back beside here so that you know which one's which. So now, like with our slopers and our other patterns that we've made, if we're doing our front armhole in this much, we need to bring our back armhole out. Think about how your arm moves and you pull it towards the front, then you need more space in here, and in the back your shoulders were spread, so you need more room back there. So I'm going to mark out 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to blend in my armhole to that point. Okay, so this will be my front armhole, and this will be my back armhole. So if it helps you to do these in different colors, or like I said, you should be using pencil, then you can write that on there so that you know you have the right information. Okay, our next step will be to make our princess seam line marks. So basically at this point, if you wanted to use this for a dress, you could, but we want to talk in this video about how to turn this into a princess seam line dress so that you can use either thing. So to make our princess seam line marks on here, we need to make sure that we have the apex marked. And then on our waistline, we're going to measure over 3 3/8. Okay, then we're going to mark 1/4 of an inch on either side of this. So basically this is like the middle of our dart, and we're going to create the princess seam line to take some of that out. So if we leave it like this, it'd be more of a looser dress. With our princess seam line, we're going to add a little bit of fit in at the waist. Okay, up at our armhole, make sure you're measuring along on the front armhole, the new front armhole, and measure over 3 inches. So just walk your ruler around. So from this point to my apex, I'm just going to draw a straight line right now so that we have a guideline. And then same thing here. I'm just going to draw a straight line from here to here and a straight line from here to here. Okay. Then if we drop this down, square down about 3 inches, and I'm just using that center of the dart mark, and then we're going to reconnect these lines to that point. And then square to your hemline. Okay, so really rough, but it gives you an idea of where our princess seam line is going to be. So at this point, take your French curve or your hip curve and just blend out the lines so that you don't end up with the corners. Okay, and up here, we're going to bring this out so that we're connecting the bust point to the mark at the armhole, and we're going above our line about 1/4 of an inch. Get to where you think you have a nice curve. And then that should blend just straight into this line or blend straight into this one. So if you feel like you need to curve that out a little bit right there, you can change it however you want to, but make sure that you've got a good smooth curve so that when you sew this together, that line is nice and smooth. So this is just a basic princess seam line pattern here. Okay, so I'm going to cut mine out, and then I'm cutting out on my back, and I'm not going to cut the princess seam lines right now. So I'm going to cut out on my back arm, my back neckline, my back armhole, and then the rest of the garment, and then we'll talk about tracing it to the other side. Okay, so now we have our pattern cut out. We are actually going to take it and flip it over and trace it just as it is to create our back. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my ruler and draw my grain line. And then I'm just going to lay my pattern right up against that, and I've flipped it over so that our back will be on the opposite side. And then we're just going to trace this. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mark where my hip line is, my waistline, my new underarm seam, and I'm going to go ahead and mark this halfway point between these two so I have that information as well. So once you have that, you can go ahead and label this. This will be your back, princess, seam, sleeveless, dress. This is a minimal stretch. And it's a two-way. Okay, so now that we have that one set up, we could go ahead and cut out the rest of this so that it will actually be like our front. our dress front and our dress back. Then you can go ahead and cut out your princess seam lines here or just transfer them to this so that you could have patterns either way. But for our example right now, we're creating a princess seam line dress. We're gonna go ahead and transfer these over. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut on my princess seam line. And right now I'm gonna cut on the one that's closer to the waist, or excuse me, to the center front. Okay, so that would be our center front piece, and this would be our side front piece. Okay, so to transfer these onto your back, you could just flip these over and redraw them. So I'm going to go ahead and have to bring this all the way out to my armhole, no problem. Okay, and then we'll take our our side piece and do the same thing. So really we only need to get this little dart piece right here in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and label this one. So this is my side front, princess seam, sleeveless dress, minimal stretch, two-way. And this would be my center front, all that same information. So the things now that you need on here are your grain lines. So you can always square up from your hemline in this case because it was squared out from that. So on your center panel here, or your side seam panel, your side front panel, I'll get it there eventually. I just go ahead and put my grain line. I try to aim for the middle. I don't measure it and try to make it that exact, but I visually kind of look for this middle of this section so I know where it is. Your grain line on your center front, if you had cut this on the fold, obviously would be in the center. For our case, I'm just going to line it up here and put it just parallel to the center front. Okay, don't forget your arrow, because remember, knits are basically like a velvet. They have a nap to them and they show if you don't cut them the same direction. So before we even cut this one out, I'm going to go ahead and mark it. So this will be my center back, this will be my side back. And go ahead and write all your information on all of them. I'm just not going to make you guys sit here and watch me do that. Okay, and that's how you create your princess dress that's sleeveless. Mini dress is what I did. You can do one as long as you want. I used my minimal pattern and I'm doing the minimal two-way stretch. If you want to switch these to a different ratio, we'll talk about that in another video or in class, but just know that this is where you'd start. The rest of them would make the same adjustments that you made on drafting or grading your original piece. Okay, hope that helps you. See you next time. You guys, I got all the way to the end and realized I had forgotten a step. So I'm going to talk about how to go back and do this right now. And luckily it's nothing that that will be hard to fix at this moment. When we were doing our adjustment for the smaller armhole, I forgot to take in 1/8 of an inch at the shoulder tip. So we need to go in 1/8 of an inch here, tapered to nothing at the shoulder, high point shoulder, we go down 1/8 of an inch, shoulder tip stays at 0. So I'm gonna lay my ruler on here. I'm at the 1/8 of an inch mark right here. And I'm gonna mark to 0 at my shoulder tip. And then we'll cut that off. And we'll do the same thing on our back. So I'm going to come in here 1/8 of an inch right here to 0 right there and mark that. So we'll cut this off as well. So sorry that I forgot to put that in there, but hopefully you can get that fixed now. This is mostly because we lowered that neckline and we want to make sure that this stays snug with our body and not real gapey. So go ahead and make that change if you haven't done it already. Thanks.